Hello and welcome back to RareRoo Crafts. I'm Sarah and I'm on today to share with you how I've made these gorgeous bag toppers. Now I have already filmed this video once. Unfortunately the footage was really rubbish because my camera was doing its zoomy in and out thing. So I'd made all of these bag toppers on camera, but I can't really share it because the footage is too rubbish. So what I thought I would do is show you the bag toppers and then I'll make one with you. So I'm using some products that were sent to me by the lovely NBEADS. They sent me a selection of stuff to play with. In amongst that selection were some sea-themed charms and beads. And I thought it would be nice to show you how you can use these types of beads and charms in projects other than jewellery, because I've got tons and tons of these sorts of things, and I do use them in my jewellery making, but I use them just as much in my day-to-day crafts as well. So I use them a lot in things like mixed media, but I think they're also really nice for use on cards and bag toppers and book covers and things like that. So these are the ones that I made. So I made these embellishments for Embellishments on the 11th last month. And I did a little giveaway, and I gave a pack of them away for a subscriber. So they've been posted, Anne, if you're watching, so you should get those sometime. Well, I say sometime soon. They're going from the UK to Australia, so who knows how long they'll take, but hopefully not too long. But yeah, I wanted to package them up nicely because I was sending them out as a gift, as some happy mail. So I packaged them in little bags with these lovely little bag toppers. So the first thing to say is you need to start with the size of your bag. When you're packaging anything up, you need to start with the size of your bag, and you need to cut a little backboard just slightly smaller than the size of your bag. So you can see here that these are just scraps of card that I had in my stash. They were in my scrap box. They went with the project. So I cut them just slightly smaller, and you need a little bit of space at the top because that's obviously where your bag topper is going to attach to. So then I made sure that all of my embellishments fitted nicely on that backboard. So I cut mine out, I gave them a little bit of distress ink around the edge, and then I popped all of mine on to that backboard with some foam dots. Now my foam dots aren't super sticky because they're quite old, so they hold them on just well enough to hold them in the packaging, but when they get to Anne, she will be able to peel them off the backing and use them on her own projects. So that was the first thing that I did, and then obviously I always pop mine upside down in the bag because that enables the recipient to open the bag from the bottom and slide the embellishments out, and they've still got the bag topper in the bag if they wish to keep that. So you can see here what I mean by I've left a little bit of space just at the top of that board, and that's what sort of slips up and into that bag topper. So on these ones, again, I've used all different papers for the actual bag toppers. I've just used what I had in my scraps box. I used a die that I happen to have in my stash. You don't need a die. You can just cut a sort of square or rectangular piece of paper, fold it in half and use that as your base. I happen to have a die, so I used that. So you can see that on all three of mine, they're all slightly different. Like I say, the papers are all different, scraps of papers from other projects. This is some hand-printed paper that I made at Christmas that I was using for my Christmas cards, but I thought, do you know what, it's fine for this. It works perfectly well for a bag topper. You can see on a couple of them, I've actually used some of the embellishments from in the embellishment kits. So when I was making the embellishments, I think I made 4 or 5 sets. My friend took a set or two, but she not picked out all of the pieces. So there were just a couple of sort of random extras. So that was fantastic because it meant that I could use them actually on the bag toppers themselves. So this is a sort of way that you can use your own embellishments that you've made. And then I've got a selection of other bits and bobs, so some trim, sequins, that sort of stuff. Obviously, the lovely charms and things. And then I've got these gorgeous little pegs that I made last year, I think. And again, I've just used those to peg onto the projects. So, to make your own bag topper, you're going to need something to use as your bag topper. So, like I say, I've used a die just because it's easy and it fits my bag perfectly. This die fits these particular bags just right. But you don't have to. You could just, like I say, cut a piece of card and use that. If you've got any of those edger dies, you could cut your card and do the edge of it on the top. But it's just something to pop down over the top of that bag. So you're going to need that. I usually like to put a little bit of trim or something on. I thought this one would go quite nicely with the card that I've chosen. Again, this is just a scrap of card out of my scraps box. And then you need your bits and bobs to embellish it with, and you can use all sorts. So this is where I really like to use charms and things. So I've selected out, I've pulled out all the charms that came from the BB Crafts. The only ones I won't use on the bag toppers are these ones, and that's just because they're quite weighty. They're a nice weighty piece of jewellery, a nice weighty bead, but they're probably a little bit too weighty for the bag topper. But these ones are ideal. I've then selected, I've cut a little bit of greenery, just using some dies out of my stash. I've just cut some leaves. I always think it adds a nice touch. You can use paper flowers. So again, I've just picked a paper flower out of my stash. This one's got a little bit of glitter on the top. You can use things like this. This is a trim that I picked up from Hobbycraft, and it's like seashells on a string, but you can just trim the strings. Sometimes you can pull them out depending on how well, oh yeah, there you go, you just pull. And sometimes if they're not embedded too hard, you can pull it out and then you're left with a little pearl seashell, that sort of thing. Sequins. These are some sequins that I had in my stash that are like little tiny clamshells. Or you can just use some gems and some charms, that sort of thing. Again, you can use like embellishments that you've made. So I've got this cool little camera that I've made on embellishments on the 11th once. Another one of those little pegs. This is one of the little sandcastles that was left over from the set. So you can use all sorts of things like that. You could use paper strips on the front there. You can make paper flags. You could use die cut embellishments. You could use stickers. You know, there's all sorts you can use to decorate these bag toppers. And they're really fun to decorate. You don't need to put too much into it because at the end of the day, it's a bag topper and it may just get thrown in the bin. Although I have to say, bless my bestie, she keeps all the ones that I send her or that I make for her, and they all hang up in her craft room, bless her. The other thing that I like to put on my bag toppers and, you know, things like that is just a little sentiment. I just always think it adds a nice little sort of finishing touch. So, to start with, I've got my actual bag topper, or, you know, your piece of card, whatever it is that you're intending to use as your bag topper. And I like to give them a little bit of definition by adding some ink. So I'm going to use some Salty Ocean. I thought it was appropriate. And I'm just going to pop that on a little sponge. And I'm going to just flick around the edges. And it just helps to define the edges of the bag topper. It adds a little bit of sort of visual texture, and it helps again to draw your eye in to where you want the eyes to be looking, you know, sort of within the field of the bag topper rather than rolling off the edge of the bag topper. There we go. And this works for anything, this sort of edging technique. You can do it on cards, you can do it on journal pages. I tend to do it on everything. Because it does. Sometimes I'll do it quite subtly, and I'll use a sort of tone-on-tone ink, and sometimes I'll do it a bit more. So this is a little bit more sort of noticeable, but that just allows for, like I say, that sort of visual texture. But I do usually do it with most types of project. Okay. Once I've got my inking around the edge, the first thing I want to think about is your bottom layers. So with any project like this, it's all about the layers, and that's what gives it that really, really gorgeous textured look and all that visual interest, is because it's layer upon layer upon layer. So you need to think about what layers you're going to start with. So for me, I always start with my trim layer because everything else is going to go on top of that. So in order to get my trim down, I usually start by just putting a little dab of hot glue where, if my hot glue's not working, it doesn't look like it is, bear with. Frustrating, somebody had unplugged my glue gun and I didn't realise, and I just pressed the button. So I've just had to wait, but it did give me a chance to have a sip of my tea, so that was nice. So I'm going to start, as I said, by putting a little dab of glue where I want my ribbon to start. And that just allows me to sort of get it lined up, get it positioned where I want it. Obviously being careful because it is a hot glue gun. And then from there I can run a line. You could do it in 2 bits if you wanted to. Not that precious. So, and then I'm just going to flip it over and sort of get it where I want it. I'm not bothered if it's dead straight. You won't see tons and tons of it. And then I'm going to flip it over and I'm just going to trim off the excess on that side and trim off the end there. And there we go. We've got that really cute piece of trim that we use as our starting layer. Then from there we need to think about how we're going to build this up. So again, thinking in those layers, I'm going to put my greenery down next because I want my greenery to, again, I want it to be there and to be poking out amongst everything, but I want it to be underneath. Those two are the same green, so I'm going to use those two. So I'm going to start off with those two, and I'm just going to blob a bit of hot glue underneath and just stick them down. And they'll get secured further when I put the next layer down. Chair's gone all creaky. Okay, so next up I want to put some of this stuff, because this reminds me of seaweed, this one. But I don't like that bright green colour. It's just a little bit too vivid for me. So I'm going to take just a little bit of forest moss, and I'm not covering it, but I'm just knocking back that bright green. So you can see from the back to the front, that's what the colour it was. And just with pouncing that ink over the top, it just knocks that vivid green colour back a little bit and gives me something a little bit more subdued, and which is a bit more in line with what I wanted for my project. I'm going to just snip the tail off there because I don't want it to be too long. And then I'm going to stick it. And the glue is just tacky enough to hold it there. It wouldn't hold it permanently, but I'm going to put something over the top of it so it doesn't matter. So then I need to start thinking about, okay, what do I want to embellish this with? So I've got the cute little camera. I've got the little sandcastle that goes with the set. And then obviously I've got all of these fabulous beads and charms. And I've also got a really lovely flower, but I think I'm going to go, I don't know if to go for the charm or the camera. I think I'm going to go for the sandcastle because it fits with the charms a little bit more. So I'm going to pop one of the, or a couple of the pop dots onto this. Just peel the backs of those off. And put a bit of glue. And then I'm going to pop that over the top. So that's going to secure in that greenery a little bit more. It covers where all the greenery comes together at the top there. And then always thinking about where you stick things. So obviously what you want to make sure is that you don't stick anything over the crease mark, because obviously it won't be able to bend. So sometimes I'll actually put these on the package and then decorate them once they're on the package. But I didn't want the cellophane to be glaring in your faces the whole time we were doing it. So I've kept mine separate. So I'm going to get out a few of these gorgeous charms. I will link all of these charms in the description box below, and there's a discount code down there as well. So if you do want any of these, go on over and have a look. There's just tons I chose some sea themed ones and then I chose some autumn themed ones. But there are billions to choose from. You will not be stuck for choice if you go and have a look over there. So those are the sort of charms and things, charms and beads that I picked up from NBEADS. That's the one that I took off that piece of trim. I've got the sequins. I did just start making, while I was waiting for the glue gun to heat up, I started making a few flowers, so we could even embellish with a few of those. But we'll start off with the charms. So With charms, I don't particularly want the hoop on the jump ring or whatever goes through. I don't want that to be seen. You can either tuck it in under something, under a flower, or, you know, under, or you can just snip them off, which is what I tend to do. So I've just got a little pair of metal snips. These are just my jewellery snips, and I go once at that side and then once at the other side. If you've got any sharp bits, I find just a good nail file is enough to just sort of smooth it out. To be fair, it most often doesn't actually need that. They snip quite cleanly. And then I can just use that as a little embellishment, which I love. So he's going to sit there. So let's get... Now I've got the Gorilla Glue in my hot glue gun, which does seem to be quite good for sticking these lightweight charms and things. If you've just got normal hot glue, I'd probably go for something like Glossy Accents, although it will just obviously take a little bit longer to set. But the hot glue can become brittle. Even this one does after a while, but it's all right for bag toppers and things. So again, I'm just snipping the hoop off of this lovely shell. Try not to get the hot glue on myself. Now this one's quite domed, so I've got quite a bit of hot glue in there and sort of filled that domed bit up. And then I'm going to pop that on like so. There we go. Super cute. Right, then I could put one of these beads, but I think what I might do is I might... It's nice to have a little mix, so I think I might just put this pearl one. It's nice to have a mix of colours and textures and tones and all the rest of it. It really helps it to sort of all stand out like that. And then I'm going to take the top off of this little seahorse, because I'm going to sit him down the bottom here, but no, I'm not going to put my sentiment on first. I was going to put my sentiment on first, but I don't think, no, he won't hit where my sentiment's going to go, so that's okay. Obviously, if he was going to go over the sentiment, I'd have to put my sentiment down first, but he's not. So, oops, quick, before the glue dries, let's get him on. There we go, like that. It's looking so cute. Right, now I want to get a little bit of sparkle and shine on there, so I'm going to put a few of these little sequins, and I'm going to just use the tacky glue for that. Don't need hot glue to stick these on. And I'm just going to pop a few little bits of glue here and there, and then just drop those in on top like so. And it might actually look nice with a couple of these little flowers. So let's have a look at these. They are teeny tiny flowers, and you're probably going to struggle to see them because it's white on white. But I've just got some little die cut flowers. I've just given them the most simple bit of shaping, just with one of these nail tools. I've just sort of rolled around on each petal with one of those. And then I'm going to offset the petals so that they're not sort of laid on top of each other. Let's do 3, because I do tend to like to put things on projects in odd numbers. It seems to be more visually pleasing. Now these have got just a tiny little bit of colour to the edges of these flowers. That wasn't intentional. My flower shaping mat was a bit grubby. It had got ink all over it. But actually it looks okay, particularly for this project. So thankfully they were the right colours for this project. And then pop that one in there. So I've just layered up 3 of the flowers, and then I've got these little gems off to one side that I've got these little coloured gems. So these are just ones that I picked up from the range, I think it was, ages and ages and ages ago. They came on a big long plastic strip, but I sort of took a few of them off and put them in that pot, which was actually a bit of a mistake because the sticky stuff on the back, although I stripped it off, they are still a little bit sticky, and they're a bit of a pest to actually get hold of and stuff. So I'm just going to use my little wax pencil and pop a little gem in the centre of each of those flowers, like so. That's better. There we go. 3 super cute little flowers. And again, I'm just going to put those here and there. I'm just going to put a little bit of hot glue on the back of the flower and then just stick it down in amongst my project. So let's just try and get that one. Now this would have been more helpful if I'd have actually waited for the gem glue to dry, but I didn't. So now I'm struggling with it, but there you go, that'll do. And then that one there. Pop one down there as well. Then we can take our sentiments, and I just want a little one to go there. So I think I'm going to go with that Make-A-Wish. If I can get just that one off. Yep, that fit lovely. And you can ink around the edge of these actually. They take ink quite nicely. Now mine are quite dried out. I've had them for ages, like everything else in my craft room. I'm really bad for buying things and then I don't want to use it because it's so precious, and I couldn't get hold of a lot of the Tim Holtz stuff when I first started, and so then I hoarded it, and then it sort of starts to become a bit, not unusable, but just I now have to use some glue with it. So I'm trying to make myself use these things a bit more. So there we go, I've got that, and because the glue's going on the back a little bit, I'm just going to add a little bit of white glue, and it's got that lovely colour that's all around the edge of the bag topper as well, and then just straighten that up where I want it. And then the final touch, because I do love a bit of glitz and glamour, I've got these lovely clear flat backs. These just came from Ali, and I put a couple of dots of glue, find the size of gem that I want, because they're all different sizes, these ones. So I'm going to start with a bigger one at the top there, and then a slightly smaller one underneath it. There you go. And they just catch the light as the bag topper moves about. So there we go. Right, let's take the auto lock off, if I can. There we go. And then I can lift it up to the camera a little bit and show you. There you go. So that's the beautiful cluster that we've made. And then we've got this bit of ribbon, which to me just reminds me of the sea, which goes all the way along to my lovely little seahorse down the bottom here. My sentiment that says Make-A-Wish, and then my little gems at the top there. And then that would fold and go onto the top of your bag, and that would be your bag topper. Now on mine, I've just printed some really simple little, handmade by Sarah, with my little RareRoo crafts thing that my daughter made. I've just printed them out on just some labels that you pick up for, like, you know, from stationery supplies. And I've added those on. And then once I'd put the bag toppers on, I just took one of the little pegs that I'd made previously, and I pegged that up the top there like that. And there you have it. And they're just so beautiful, and they are such fun to make. And I love the fact that you can use such a wide variety of things to create and embellish your bag toppers. You don't need a bag topper die, you don't need any specific embellishments. You can use literally anything you've got in your stash to make the most beautiful bag toppers. So that's what I have created today. I hope you've enjoyed having a look at what I created and the process that I used to actually make the bag toppers. I will be back again later in the week with some other projects. I think I've got a journal page coming up. And also I was going to do some bag charms as well. So yeah, we've got some things coming up in the next week or so. So do keep your eyes peeled. If you're not already a subscriber, do consider hitting that subscribe button. And thank you so much to everybody that is already subscribed to my channel. It's so lovely. I look and, you know, quite often I've had a few new subscribers, but I love to see all the subscribers that have been with me from the beginning leaving me comments in the comment section. It's just so lovely, and it does brighten my day. I haven't been replying to the comments as much just recently, just because things have been a bit busy and chaotic and stuff at home and at work. But hopefully I'm going to start finding some time for myself at some point in the near future. That'd be nice. But that's it from me for now, because I am waffling. So I will see you all again very soon in another crafty video. Bye for now.